About 5 years ago, when I stood at the deathbed of my father, I was took me a while to really say this out loud, but I was actually standing there praying to God to take his life, to allow his pain to end, and to allow him to transition peacefully. So it was about 2 weeks that we'd been going back and forth. Erica flew into town. Aunts and uncles came into town. He was losing a massive amount of weight. About 5 to 3 days prior to his death, he went into a coma. He wasn't speaking anymore. And we were just on this, for lack of a better word, a death visual, just waiting for that moment to happen. We set the room as comfortably as possible. There was candles lit, and we were playing his favorite um, songs from Elvis Presley quietly in the room. We kept the lights off. It was kind of quiet in there. We were praying, we were around, but my prayer was for God to take him, to end it, that I would be okay, that I would be okay, and that I would be the support for my family. But little did I know that moments after he was gone, that I would be in full blown grief and completely broken. And what I want to talk about is at that moment that I was standing at his feet and praying for God to take him and take him out of his pain was truly conflicted feelings that were happening within my heart. Everything was mixed up. I was wanting to let him know how much I loved him and how much I appreciated everything he had done for me and how he was my hero. Yet I didn't want him to be in pain anymore. And I thought I could make this deal with God, and that when he would leave, I would be okay. And that wasn't true.
It's a concept I don't think a lot of people think about. Love and hate can exist at the same time. Happy
Yeah.
and sad can exist at the same time. That's where the term bittersweet comes from. We have opposite emotions, or how we call them conflicting feelings, that can happen at the same time. And it's completely normal, it's natural, but people don't know how to interpret that when it happens. They feel crazy because it's like, how can I love this person but hate them and don't want them in my life? How can I be happy that my son is going off to college, but then broken and sad the minute the door closes behind him? Conflicting feelings exist all the time.
Yeah. It even happens in our everyday life, right, Erica? So you could get a promotion at work and they could double your salary. That seems like it would be a moment of sheer bliss that you would want to run out and tell everybody about it. But the minute you get in your car and you start driving home to share the news with your husband, you could be really sad about it, because the reality of what's just happened to you can hit you, right? You can be like, wow, there's going to be so much more responsibility on me. This is going to affect my family and my children. How are people going to perceive me at work? It could truly be a conflicted feeling happening right there live.
Absolutely. And with grief, conflicting feelings happen all the time. It is status quo that you will have these vast range of emotions, highs and lows, and you don't know how to process it because they're hitting you both. And it doesn't, no one ever talks about it. So we don't know what to do with it when it happens. That's why I'm kind of excited about today's topic, because we need to tell people it's normal. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You just gotta find the balance in the emotions.
I think so. The main thing that's happening here, and this is where the crux of this is crux a word?
Yes, it
Am I
is.
saying it right? Because every
Yes,
time I
correct.
say it, I'm like, oh, I just pronounced it that wrong. Because it
The
sounds
crux
like
of the
crux.
issue.
But anyway, sidetrack. Here's the thing. We often perceive relief as a positive experience. I'm going to get this divorce and I'm going to have this relief. My dad is going to pass and transition. He's going to die. And then I'm going to have the relief because I won't be able to see him in pain anymore. Right? I'm going to get this new job and I'm going to make more money because I'm going to have this relief that not going to have I'm going to have this amazing financial change in my life. The word relief is often perceived as positive. And so when we have this relief, we think that all of these positive emotions are going to flow behind it. And sometimes, a lot of times, that's not what happens. What flows behind it is anguish, pain, sadness, anger. And we're not expecting that.
Right, right. Because we've been conditioned to view the word relief as a positive. No one tells us the other options. No one talks about the sadness that can come from having a happy experience. No one talks about those things. So it's like, why would we know that? You know what I mean?
Right. So let me break down conflicted feelings. Conflicting feelings is a cause, grief that comes from conflicted feelings is caused by the end or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. A familiar pattern of behavior. My dad was always there for me. He's the guy, and you guys have heard us talk about him a lot. He's the guy that Erica and I called to get recipes from, or when we wanted to know where the cheapest chicken was being sold. Actually, he always gave us that information every time we talked to him. But anything we needed from him, how to fix the garage door, where do all the millions of places you use WD-40, all of those things. He was funny. He was the solid in our family. When he was no longer there, that familiar pattern ended, and it caused this conflict of emotions. Yes, I was standing there praying for him to be relieved of his pain, but I also needed him. I needed him in my life. He was my friend. He was the one that I called quite often, and I still needed to talk to him.
That is so true. Because it's like, what do we do? What do you do when he's gone? And you have those scenarios you play through your mind, and you think you prepare yourself like, okay, well, I would be ready. You're never ready. You're never ready. And that also triggers the sadness and all the longing. But again, think about retirement, Sharon. You've committed your life to a career for 40, let's say 40 plus years. And then one day you commit to your retirement. You have the cake that they throw you the little party. You drive home and you wake up the next morning, you have nowhere to go. You're not expected to be anywhere. The people you formed relationships with for all these years, you don't get to talk to on a daily basis. The conflicting feelings that comes from the change in that pattern of behavior, where you have had a purpose, you've had people relying on you for 40 plus years, and now you don't have anyone. You're left to your own devices. That also is a huge trigger of the conflicting feelings.
Absolutely. So here's another a great example. I think that was great. Erica, how many times have we been sitting with women and they're grieving their divorce or their breakup of their romantic relationship, and they knew the relationship was bad. They knew it was coming to an end. They knew the relationship was heavy. They also understand that breakup was the best thing for both of them at that moment. And they are all bad mouthing their spouse, right? Their significant other, their partner. They're bad mouthing and bad mouthing. And all of a sudden, you and I see something, we catch it really quick. And we'll so quietly ask the question, do you still love him? Do you still love her? And it's almost like they're embarrassed to say it. And the tears just start falling. You know that you could have a divorce and break up with somebody and still totally be in love with them. Conflicted feelings, conflicted emotions that show up in our life every single day.
Yeah, I think it's that they feel that it's not supposed to, the love is not supposed to exist with the hatred or the anger. And so when we ask that question, they do look caught off guard because it's like they don't think that they're allowed to have the two emotions at the same time. But everyone who's listening to this podcast will be able to identify that they have had these experiences where the opposite emotions have lived in their hearts at the same time. And it is completely normal and it happens on a daily basis.
Yeah. It happens on a daily basis. And it's almost like when we ask them if they're still in love, it's like they've been found out.
Right.
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 So let's talk about what to do with conflicted feelings. First and foremost, you have to identify that you're having conflicted feelings, that today I'm totally crying for my dad. Now, here's the other thing. I'm not totally crying for my dad, but that right after he died, I was totally crying. And then what happened to me is that I started to feel guilty that I prayed that prayer. I felt guilty, as almost as if I caused him to transition or die or move on. It was as if my prayers were so powerful. So the conflicted feelings came from the guilt, but yet still needing him here. So it was totally happening to me. The number one thing I think you have to do is you have to identify that these are conflicted feelings that are happening within you. And sometimes it's hard to understand there. It's hard to get to that moment, but you have to say, wow, I miss him and I love him. And I'm glad he's no longer in pain. All three of those are existing in me at the same time.
Yeah. The most important part, like you said, is the identifying the emotions and then accepting that it's okay that they're in you all together. It's okay that you feel the love, the guilt, and the missing. It's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person for the prayer or the woman that initiated the divorce or the breakup, or even the mother that wants to choke their child but completely loves them at the same time. There's nothing wrong with it. You're okay. But you have to accept the emotions and embrace them and know that they will exist that way in your heart.
Yeah. I can totally be mad at her, but no, I got to pick her up from school.
Right.
I can be so mad at her, but I'm still going to pick her up from school. That's conflicted feelings. Talk about it. Talk about with someone that it's a safe place. Talk about the conflicted emotions that you're having and share about those, because it does help you articulate what's going on and you can start putting a finger on it. Sometimes we fight against conflicted emotions and feelings. We push back against them. We resist because it is so foreign to us. Or, Erica, the other thing that will happen, we get stuck in the guilt. And that's the part we want to grieve all the time. We don't talk about the fact that, hey, but I still really love him. We don't want to talk about that part. We just get part that we want to beat ourselves up with, the conflicted part that we want to use, to bash ourselves.
I think that's a good point. I think people think they have to pick one emotion.
Yeah.
So like you said, we get stuck in the guilt because we feel like we have to choose one. We don't feel as though we get to let all the things reside. When Donovan passed away, I was so mad at him. I wanted to revive him so that I could kill him because he made me so mad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I pushed back on the anger because I felt that I was going to be judged for saying that I was mad at my son that died in an accident. Like, what kind of mother says that she's mad at her son who died accidentally? He didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. But I was mad because I knew he was not mature enough to buy that motorcycle that he bought. And I was mad because I knew he was going to have some sort of accident. I did not know it would be to the extent of him dying, but I knew that he would have some sort of accident. But I pushed back because I felt that I wasn't allowed to be mad because I just needed to be sad because he died. So I got stuck in that, not being able to let my conflicting feelings reside in me as well. So this is actually coming from experience, just like your experience with our dad. You can let all three reside. You don't have to choose one. And you do have to speak your truth. It was a long time before I openly talked about how mad I was. It was the stuff that I was holding in and keeping back from you when we would get on the phone.
Yeah.
You speak your truth. It's okay. Find your safe space and your person and speak your truth. I really feel mad at him, so mad, but I'm also so sad that he's gone. And I also miss him so much that my
Yeah.
heart is just breaking. You can
Yeah.
say those things out loud. And if you don't have a safe space, write them down. Write down the feelings.
What do you think would have happened in the early stages of Donovan dying if you would have said that out loud? I'm so mad at him.
Well,
What were you afraid of?
I felt people would try to talk me out of it. You know how people do that? Look, oh, don't be mad. It wasn't his fault. And then that would make me even more mad because it's like,
Yeah.
why did I even tell you what I was thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's what
Trying to
happens.
use your own words against you.
Yeah, that's what happens to grievers. They get shut down. So then they're scared to speak their truth. And it's a frustrating experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that sharing that no matter what is the most is truly the most important thing is getting it out because it perpetuated your grief by holding it in.
Yeah.
You identified the anger. I don't think back then you would have called it conflicting feelings. You identified the anger was there, but you didn't share it with anybody. And so something happens when we say it out loud. Our heart and our brain come out to the same spot and we start to it almost like that's where the relief happens.
Yeah. That's what I was
That's
just about to
what the
say.
relief happens is when we're saying it out loud. This all brought me back to the story that I want to share. One day I picked Lauren. I have two daughters, Lauren and Brittany, picked them up from school. And of course, everything was wrong. Couldn't find the backpack, couldn't find the lunch pail. One of them didn't wear deodorant, so they smelled up my car. We have about a 30-minute ride to the house. It was arguing and screaming and fighting. And when I got home, my husband was there. My husband is 6'4", I'm 5'3". And I was like in tears by the time we got home. And he just looked at my face and he said, "What's the matter?" And he walked over and he leaned down really close to me. And I whispered in his ears, "I hate them." And he whispered in my ear back, "Me too. Let's move." And the moment he did that, I burst out laughing. And here's the truth, my friends. I don't hate my children. I hated their acting out at that moment. I hated being in the hot sun and having to look for a backpack and a lunch pail. I hated them not being responsible for their chores. I hated all that about it and the arguing and screaming that took place in the car. But me sharing that one thing out loud and him totally hearing me and leaning down in my ear and saying that, it just took the moment right out of it. Yes, it was conflicted feelings. I absolutely love these girls to death and would die on a cross for them right now. But at that moment, they were absolutely driving me crazy. Conflicted feelings and emotions.
Absolutely. And mothers know that, I think, more than anyone, because we have that on a daily basis with these little beings that we bring into this world. They know how to
Yeah.
test us more than anyone. So, but those are my favorite moments. Our one of our favorite movies that we talk about all the time, Steel Magnolias, the funeral scene, laughter through tears.
Yeah.
Conflicting feelings. You're sad.
Feelings.
Your heart is broken. And we've had these experiences because we are warped humans and we find humor in sad moments all the time. It's what happens. It's how we're wired. No one says that you only have to feel one emotion at a time.
I love that. That is so perfect. No one says you have to feel one emotion at a time and drag it out.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to ride the one all the way to the end and then you get to pick up the second one.
Thank you, God. We get to feel them all every day, every minute of the day.
Yes. Yes.
All right, friends. Look for your conflicted feelings and emotions today.
And sit in them.
Yeah.
Sit in them and let you know it. I mean, and understand it's going to pass. And then the next day, you're going to have a new set of conflicting emotions that you'll have to sit through. But this is how it works.
We'll be here for you. Yeah,
yes,
we'll be
we
here.
will.
Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.